After a year off, is it back to Clemson and everyone else? ACC Power Rankings right here at the Voice of College Football. Before you enjoy the video, please hit the like button and subscribe. Hit that bell for the notifications to know when we go live. Let's run them down to 14 all the way up to number 1. And we start with the poor Virginia Cavaliers. 14th ranked in the ACC. They've lost all 3 games in conference. And also poor Brennan Armstrong. He could have gone off to the NFL. He pored over the decision, but he liked what he heard out of new head coach Tony Alford. Brennan Armstrong was the number 1 rated quarterback in the country in yards per game last season. This season, Virginia is 86th in passing offense. They were the number 21 scoring offense in college football last year. They've dropped to number 102, 0-3 in the ACC. Just take the Illinois game as a microcosm. Brennan Armstrong, 450 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 42 points on the board against Illinois last year. This year, 138 measly yards, 2 interceptions, no touchdowns, only scored 3 points. They're number 14. At number 13, we've got Louisville. They broke the tie against Virginia last week, beating the Cavaliers 34-17. Is Scott Satterfield still the head coach of this team? Louisville's been pretty dreadful in this one. Again, 1-3 in the ACC. Virginia has kept them out of the basement. At number 12, we've got Boston College and Jeff Hafley. His team got off to a rough start. They were a touchdown favorite against Rutgers in the opener, and they lost that game by 1 point after leading by 2 scores in the fourth quarter. That just kind of led into what we would see for the rest of 2022. The last effort was at home against Clemson, and they got drubbed 31-3 in that ball game. Have not been able to get star quarterback Phil Jurkovec going, 10 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. Boston College at number 12 in our power rankings. At number 11, a team that was expected by many to contend for an ACC championship, and that would be Miami. They go to Virginia Tech seeking their first ACC win. They've only played once. They lost to North Carolina last week, 27-24. But think of this. We are in mid-October, and Miami has defeated 2 teams, Bethune-Cookman and Southern Miss. Those are the 2 wins. Tyler Van Dyke coming off a historic game in Miami annals with 496 yards passing. That's the second highest total in the history of the school, but again, in a loss. Miami, Virginia Tech coming up, and the Canes are number 11. Virginia Tech's at number 10 in our power rankings coming up this week 7. This has got to be the worst roster at Virginia Tech since early Frank Beamer, early 1990s. They gave up 86 points the past 2 weeks against North Carolina and Pitt. The last 3 games against ACC opponents, they have been outscored 119-49. Grant Wells has 6 TDs and 7 picks. It's just not a very good football team. The Hokies rank at number 10. In the number 9 spot, I know it's only 1 spot away, but this team has had a remarkable climb. They have dropped the past couple games to Kansas and to Georgia Tech in overtime, but Duke football is competitive. They first snapped a 13-game losing streak in the ACC. And again, the last 2 weeks, even though they've lost the games, have shown the competitiveness of Duke football under Mike Elko, their first-year head coach. Duke at 4-2 at number 9, taking on North Carolina this week. At number 8, we go to the defending ACC champions, the Pitt Panthers, coming off a win against Virginia Tech, but the previous week really shows that Pitt is not up to challenging for the ACC championship, although in the Coastal, anything's possible. They lost to Georgia Tech. Israel Abanikanda is number 2 in the nation in rushing, and he ran for 320 yards this past weekend against Virginia Tech, and count them, 6 touchdowns. Our number 8 team in the ACC is Pitt at 4-2. In the number 7 position in the ACC power rankings, we've got quite an accomplishment from one interim head coach, Brent Key. Takes over after Jeff Collins was dismissed. Collins and the Rambling Wreck had lost 10 consecutive FBS games. Key steps in the past 2 weeks. Georgia Tech has beaten 2 pretty decent football teams. Pitt on the road, and then last weekend an OT win against Duke. So back-to-back wins for Georgia Tech for the first time since 2018, after, again, 10 consecutive FBS losses. Our 7th-ranked team in the ACC is quarterback Jeff Sims and Georgia Tech. At number 6, the team that should be favored at this point to win the Coastal Division, and that is North Carolina, coming off the win against Miami at Hard Rock Stadium. The defense getting better, still not accomplished, still not great, but held Miami in check despite giving up a ton of passing yards, but they were leading that game, and so Miami had to throw it 57 times. They did hold Virginia Tech the week before to just 10 points after that just hilarious 6-touchdown quarter against Appalachian State earlier this season. Of course, this offense is led by Drake May, 21 touchdowns, 3 picks, 69% completion percentage. They lost to Notre Dame, but in conference, they are flawless so far with a date at Duke on Saturday. At number 5, we go to Florida State. The Seminoles coming off 2 consecutive tough losses, one in which they got behind against Wake Forest early 28-7, roared back, made it close, and lost, though, by 10 points. And then this past weekend could have opted for the game-winning field goal inside a minute left to play, but went for the jugular and threw the pick in the end zone to lose to North Carolina State and a 17-3 lead in that game. So Florida State, their big 3-game stretch, Wake, NC State, they try to salvage one of the 3 at home against Clemson this weekend. They are a much improved football team, but Florida State still back in the pack at this point at number 5 in the ACC. At number 4, it's the surprising Syracuse Orange. They are 5-0. They've won 2 games in the ACC, albeit those 2 games against what may be the 2 worst teams in the conference at this point, Virginia and Louisville. But still, Syracuse at 5-0, and now taking on their first major challenge at home Saturday against North Carolina State. You got Sean Tucker running the football. Garrett Schrader runs it from the quarterback position. This interesting team is Mr. or Miss Cinderella of the 2022 season. Syracuse taking on NC State this weekend. The aforementioned Wolfpack of NC State just 1 spot ahead of Syracuse at number 3. Beat Florida State in comeback fashion this past weekend. Without Devin Leary in the second half, we don't know if he's going to be ready for the Syracuse game at this point. This NC State got off to a rough start to the season despite pulling out a game against East Carolina that they could have lost with the last-second field goal miss. Had an impressive out-of-conference win against a decent Texas Tech team. North Carolina State has just 1 loss on the season. That's against Clemson on the road 2 weeks ago. NC State at number 3. The team that did give Clemson its toughest test of the season, of course, Wake Forest. Losing in double OT at home against Clemson a couple weeks ago, they rebounded with a win against Florida State. Impressive fashion on the road. They can run it, they can throw it. Sam Hartman's one of the best in the business. The wide receiver core is exceptional. Justice Ellison's a fine back. Wake Forest just coming off a 25-point win against Army as well. And then we get to the number 1 team in the ACC, and that's clearly Clemson. They have cleared the 2 most difficult hurdles in the division and in the conference. Wake Forest, despite looking leaky on defense, didn't get the pass rush. The defensive backs running around in circles. They really got schooled by Wake Forest's offense. However, they survived 51-45. And then they put on a clinic in the second half, in particular against North Carolina State. Got off to a slow start this past weekend at Boston College, but hit the gas in the second half to win 31-3. This is the best team with the best talent, the best roster, and they're playing like it. Their next game coming up is, of course, at Tallahassee against Florida State. ACC Power Rankings heading into Week 7 look like this. Clemson at number 1. Wake at 2. NC State at 3. Your number 4 team is Syracuse, still undefeated. Florida State rounds out the top 5, followed by UNC, Georgia Tech, Pitt, Duke, Virginia Tech, Miami at 11, BC at 12, Louisville, and Virginia pull up the rear. Right here at the Voice of College Football, please like, comment, share, and subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football.